First, I wanted to introduce some of the Perlan folks. I see that we have Ed Warnock here, and I believe Elizabeth Austin. Yep. So they are from Perlan. Ed, would you like to do a quick little introduction of your own, just to let people know who you are and what Perlan is?
Perlan is an exciting, something spectacular attempt to reach the edge of space and fly higher than any other wingborne aircraft in history. And just to make it challenging, we decided to leave the engine out of the airplane and do it with no engine at all. So it's a glider, which makes it a zero-emission research platform, and we ride giant stratospheric waves that are generated off of the Andes Mountains in the wintertime in southern Argentina, almost the very tip of South America. And our goal this year is to fly your CubeSat to 90,000 feet.
Excellent. So what is your current record that you hold at the moment?
At the moment, we have flown to 76,124, and I give you every foot because the last four were hard. And we did that in 2018, and that officially beat the U2's altitude record. So the Perlan research glider is the highest flying subsonic wingborne airplane in history. And now we're going after the supersonic airplanes. And the only one we have to beat is the SR-71 Blackbird.
Wow.
And it flies at about 2,400 miles an hour in order to be able to stay airborne. And so if we beat the SR-71, that's when we become just the highest flying airplane, period.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah. It's amazing because when I met Ed, Perlan had a Perlan 1, this is the Perlan 2. Perlan 1 was already the world record holder for human gliding, right? And that was somewhere around 50,000. And in the time that we've been flying student experiments, Perlan 2 just keeps setting new world records, often with our experiments aboard in the 60s, now 70s, and 90 is almost unimaginable for everybody except the Perlan team. So this is going to be an awesome year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been fun to be on the project because when we started, the aviation experts said, no, can't be done.
It's nice to prove them wrong.
They always say that, right?
And what they mean is it hasn't been done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're very excited to be a part of you making history.
By the way, staffed by all volunteers. We are not funded by NASA. Airbus is our main sponsor, but they don't pay any salaries. They just help us with the cost of getting the glider to South America, some of our technical costs. So we're anxious to fly your CubeSats because that's one of our main sources of getting scientific influence. Our volunteers like your students.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anybody else from the Perlan team that wants to add anything?
Hi, this is Elizabeth Austin, and I'm in the midst of doing a few things, that's why my camera's off, but I'm the chief scientist on the project, and I just want to reiterate how wonderful it is having the Teachers in Space CubeSats, and over the years I really enjoyed before when we had that competition and the voting, and that was really great. So I think it's wonderful to have this aspect of the scientific part of the project. So.
One thing you need to know about Elizabeth is she was with the project before any of us that are currently with Perlan. We call this Perlan 2. She was with Perlan 1 when they flew in spacesuits and flew to a little over 50,000 feet and set a world record after probably 5 years of attempts. It's finally got to where they beat all glider records. And Elizabeth is one of the founders of the Perlan 2 project, which came after the Perlan 1 went to 50,000 plus.
All right, how about the egret team? Do you have anything you want to add about your aircraft?
Yeah, the Egret is a special aircraft in its own right. It's part of the Perlan project because we are the tow plane that has brought the abilities of the Perlan team higher than I guess it had before when it was being towed by a normal airplane, if you will. The Egret is basically a spy plane. It was built during the Cold War, and it was when we wouldn't allow the Americans weren't allowed to sell the U-2 to the German government, so they decided to build their own. So it looks like a huge glider with a mother of an engine. It has a huge Garrett turboprop in the front of it, and a 108-foot wingspan. And it's designed to carry a payload of 1,000 kilograms to 50,000 feet and remain there for 8 hours. So the entire bottom of the aircraft is non-structural, so it's payload bays. And we have loaded it with enormous amounts of equipment, from atmospheric sensing types of things to different kinds of signals intelligence, like its normal spy thing, as well as optical turrets and radars, all different kinds of things that you might be able to put up in a very high altitude setting without a lot of cost. And so Ainer was the pilot that actually flew the airplane that we are flying today. And as you know, Ainer was the founder of the Perlan project. And so when the Perlan team was looking for a way to get into the stratosphere, because that was, I guess, their greatest need, was they couldn't get out of the troposphere, because sometimes the troposphere and the stratosphere are not linked together in the wave, and that they had this brilliant idea: why don't we look to find an airplane that's capable of towing us up into the stratosphere? And during that same thought, I guess great minds think alike, we had just discovered the Perlan project through our own looking, because we're our own company as well. And I am a scientist, and I've always wanted to do these novel types of research projects. And we were like, wow, we should call the Perlan team. We have an airplane for them. I think that we can get them into the stratosphere. And wouldn't you know, about a week later, the whole Perlan team, one of the Ainer and Jim Payne, called us and said, hey, we have a proposition for you guys. Would you like to join us? And we were like, yeah, that'd be cool. So since then, which was 2018, we joined the Perlan team. And we, as Ed says, we have been successful in bringing the Perlan glider into the stratosphere each time we've launched. And I believe we are loving this teamwork, because we need to get the Perlan up into the actual higher atmospheric wave so that they can glide up to the highest reaches that the airplane was designed for. And so as Ed and everyone else here is looking forward to, we are as well. We're hoping to tow them up to about 50,000 feet this year and give them a good boost so that they can go up and fly high.
Yeah, Roberta and her team are essential to our project. It used to be that we made it into the stratosphere with an engineless airplane with a glider. Once every 2 years of trying, and now every flight is a stratospheric flight, which is a real boost for our scientific investigations.
Right, and this year, we're very pleased. I have, as I said, I'm a scientist, so I really am into trying to gather data up at the highest reaches of the atmosphere. And we have been trying to get a payload that would really, help to understand what's happening up there, even from the egret's point of view. Because as I said, we fly at about 45 to 50,000 feet. So if we could have different types of things in our aircraft that can then be also mimicked in the Perlan glider, we can really see the transition between the atmosphere, the lower stratosphere versus the upper stratosphere.
And so by you guys providing us these CubeSats, it's a great opportunity to explore the natural world. And it's a perfect thing for students to get excited about. This is one of the big things that I'm also interested in, is pushing the youth and the STEM and all the, the inspiration side. And as Elizabeth and I sit on the science team, we're constantly thinking about what to do to inspire the rest.
And I'd like to introduce one more Perlan team member, and that's Elisa. Elisa is going to be the person who is managing your CubeSats on the ground in Argentina, and she will be making sure the batteries are charged, the CubeSat is put into either the egret or the Perlan, and after the flight she'll be downloading the data from your CubeSat and putting it up on the internet and recharging the battery so it can fly next time we go up. So Lisa's going to be doing all the hard work throughout August and September.
Hey everybody. Yeah, hey, it's an honor to be working with you guys. I've been a part of the Perlan project since actually I was 11, and now I'm in 11th grade. I'll be a high school senior next year in the fall. And these are a really great opportunity for students and teachers everywhere. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right, so maybe now is the time we start taking a look at the CubeSats themselves. So taking a look at the document, we're going to start with Maine, specifically with Karen Paquin's CubeSat from her students at St. John's Catholic School. So if we take a look here on the screen, you'll see here is that CubeSat, and on board this CubeSat we've got quite a few sensors. Down here we've got a radiation sensor. Any of you who have worked with this particular radiation sensor, and I know a few of you have, there is a way to fit it inside of a 1U. It's not the easiest. I had to do a lot of kind of messing around with it to get it to actually fit in there, but this orientation is one of the ways that you can make it work kind of on an angle like that. On board we have a genuine Arduino Uno as the brain, and then up top we have a multifunction environmental sensor right here, which does temperature, pressure, humidity, ambient light, ultraviolet light, and also with that pressure reading it can determine altitude as well. We also have a gyro / accelerometer. It's kind of hard to see in there, but it's in there. So that'll give us our orientation as far as, which direction, like so, that it's in, as well as it's up and down and left and right and forward and back. And then what else do we have on here? We have the let me consult the list. It also has a real-time clock, the micro SD card reader, and all of them. Just so you all know, I did do some modifications to pretty much every single CubeSat, so don't be super surprised if you notice that it looks a little bit different. But you'll also notice that on every single CubeSat except for maybe one, there's this thing right here. This is a really useful, really nice, really amazing part. This is called a Power Boost by Adafruit. Specifically, this is the Power Boost charger. And what this allows us to do is use batteries. You can just take a battery and you plug it in. There, you see it went on. You can see some of the other lights have come on as well. Let's see if we turn off. You can see it has come alive. Now, what this Power Boost allows us to do is not only use a battery, but it also allows us to charge that battery. Now, the thing with a lot of good batteries for these types of projects these lithium ion batteries. I've got one right here. These are really good because they can work at really low pressures and really low temperatures. We ran into some issues using kind of regular 9-volt style batteries where the extreme low pressures caused the battery to separate and not work, but we shouldn't run into that issue with these. One issue though, I don't know if you can actually see it on there, but this is a 3.7 volt battery. And the reason why that's a problem is that a lot of these sensors, as well as the Arduinos, run on 5 volts. So if you have 3.7 volts but you need 5 volts, you need to boost that voltage up, and that's what this power boost will do. So basically it makes us able to use these really good batteries for our Arduino projects. Now what's really convenient about this is it will also charge it as well. So once it's ready to go in the Perlan, it'll be plugged in, this little battery cable. It'll go up on Perlan, it'll finish its flight, and when it's done, all you need to do is just plug in a micro USB cable right there. And notice this little yellow light came on, that's the charging light. So now it's charging that battery. So what I really was aiming for was a standardized power system that all of the CubeSats will have, that is, you plug it in and then you pretty much forget about it. So Lisa, this is really for you. I tried to make this as simple as possible. Oh, there goes my video. But so that's this CubeSat. That's the Karen Paquin's CubeSat from St. John's Catholic School. The next one we have here is from Rhonda Stevens, also a Maine teacher, and her student Cameron put this together. Cameron, before I go...
Cameron than Rhonda.
Huh?
Way more Cameron than Rhonda.
Cam, you'll notice that I did make some modifications here. I had to cut off a little portion in order to fit the power boost on the bottom. Yeah. And the only other modification I made was adding this zip tie here just to hold your radiation sensors on there. This is a really interesting CubeSat. It's got 3 radiation sensors and a couple of different materials on there to attempt to block the radiation. Cam, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So the Geiger sensors, they're each in their own little container, and I used a special type of Geiger counter. It's not the traditional tube Geiger counters, the tube Geiger motor counters that you'll find on a lot of pretty much everything else. But these ones are actually a little bit smaller, and that's how I was able to fit 3 of them. And I need to fit 3 of them, as well as 3 millimeters of shielding material on each side. So that's why I opted for the smaller ones. And they're all hooked up to that central board you can see on the bottom. And that central board, it has the Arduino, the micro SD card, and should have a pressure sensor on there. You can see it's the little black one. It's a BMP388. And basically what the PCB does is it routes all the connections between the Arduino and the sensors.
Great, yeah. So that's Cam's CubeSat. And Cam, what grade are you in?
8th grade.
So all of this put together by an 8th grader. Really good work. It's a really beautiful CubeSat, especially that custom printed PCB on the bottom. That's really great.
Yeah, you can see the Thunderbird right on the board.
Yep, right there.
Yep.
So you'll see the additions I made. There is a battery now. It's underneath that board. I was able to just squeeze it in there, and then it's got the power boost on the bottom. Yeah, Cam, do you know the make or the model of the radiation sensor?
Yeah, actually, it was a radiation watch type 5.
All right. So
I
then,
forget who makes them. I want to say it was SparkFun. You can find them on SparkFun's website.
so these right here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
There's
So
those
we've got 2 of those on our Blue Origin CubeSat that will be going up
Uh-huh.
at Blue Origin this year.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're the same ones that I used for that one.
Yep.
So they're just a little more organized and everything now.
This is that 2U CubeSat. All right. Next,
And
what's that, Cam?
those ones actually do have like some downsides to them, but for this purpose, like for CubeSats measuring over like hours, it doesn't really matter. Like they have a required measurement time of 2 minutes, so it basically like averages out all of the radiation readings over 2 minutes, and
Gotcha.
then you have to like process that a different way after the mission's done.
Yep, we will definitely be doing some data processing after this is all over. All right. Next, we have Jim Lanke from Machias Memorial High School in Maine. Jim, did you want to talk a little bit about your student's cube, or do you want me to take it over?
No, I can talk about it.
All right.
That's fine.
So here's their cube. Let's get that in focus.
Yeah, so in that orientation right there, you'll see some student artwork. Actually, that's poetry that some students decided to put together, space-related poetry. I tried to get some, all of the students involved, not just the engineering type students. And so if you flip on its side, there will be a middle panel that's kind of orange, and then it also has a student paintings on both sides of that. I thought it was kind of interesting that, particularly here in Maine, we're at 45 degrees north, and the Perlan 2 is going to be flying around 45 degrees south, so it's kind of like the dolphins of the North Atlantic meet the penguins of the South Atlantic, so that's kind of fun. I'm using a different controller. This is a ESP32, which had a thinner, smaller footprint, every micro SD card combined, and we can see that as a yellow plate just below the red line. And this uses a slightly different battery. It's a 18650 3.7 volt light bulb battery, so it's round, but it has a larger footprint. I don't know. I just went with it because it works, and yeah, there we are. And there you see Noah's presenting the artwork from this student who did that. It's actually in my group that helped create the appearance, so it was a win-win.
Are you guys able? You're able to see those?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So I thought we could get steam instead of just stab
Right.
involved here. Because I had, with the smaller footprint from the ESP, I had a little bit of extra space in there, and I thought, let's do that. I used all Adafruit sensors and the Stemma QT wires, which saved also a lot of room. And if we flip up at the top side, which would be that right there, yeah, so that a little bit hard to see on the screen, but that's actually a large coil of wire, and I'm going to be looking primarily at the Earth's magnetic field, or actually as both planes fly through the magnetic field to see if how much current is generated from using Faraday's law. And in addition, most of the other nominal sensors are on board. Because we don't have an open window, I chose not to use light. Light would have been my preferred sensor. So we went with typical temperature, pressure, humidity, and the like. I'm quite interested to see how this performs 2 weeks ago, I had a completely enclosed, nearly identical system that went up a high altitude balloon to 114. And I didn't have any problems with the temperature. Lowest temperature was minus 44. So everything performed just fine. So I'm kind of curious to see how this will do open configuration.
Oh, and just so you know, Jim, I did replace that part on there for you.
Thank you.
This guy right here.
Yep. Perfect.
And just to add, Jim actually included a power system with his. They're using a different type of battery. They're using this 18650 battery right here that goes underneath here. So this is going to require a little screwdrivering to open that up and just pop the battery in, and then this is the charger here. So a little bit of a different system.
Yeah, and Noah, could you show the power switch to Lisa?
Oh yeah. So underneath this plexiglass right here, there's a power switch that you have to take this off. And Elisa, I'm going to put together an entire video of you know, how to run and work everything. I'll share that with you. I'm also going to put it on a thumb drive and put it in the case so that you have it down in Argentina as well if for whatever reason internet isn't working. And I'm also going to put a written explanation of how everything works in there as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Jim, did you have anything else you wanted to add about this?
No, I think I covered it all.
All right. So that's the last of our Maine cubes. Next, we're going to look at some cubes from New Mexico, starting with Arcelia Rios and her Riverside Elementary students. They put together this next cube. Here we go. So did you guys want to talk a little bit about your cube and what you have on board?
Yes, good afternoon. We're from the Sunland Park area in New Mexico, and here I have 4 of my students. I have Christian, I have Evelyn, Ian, Sebastian, and they're part of a group. There's 11 students in the after-school program that we have, and we started putting it together more than anything. We wanted to, for myself, I wanted to introduce the students to the process, to CubeSats, to how technology is being taken into space and into the atmosphere in different ways, like how we were taught. The students put together a photo sensor in it, the gyro accelerometer, and also they added the temperature and pressure and the real-time clock. But we weren't able to get it all to work, and so they actually took it apart and then put it back together again, each one. So they took turns between 2 and 3 students. The after-school program finished, and we were still not done. Noah even helped us throughout the day. And so we would pull out students, and during the class time, I'm a language arts teacher, but I do the sciences after school. And so my students from my class got a chance to work on it. And I also pulled out my other students because there's 4th graders in the class, 5th graders, and a couple of 6th graders. So right now here we have Sebastian. I don't know if Christian and Sebastian, they want to add anything because they had excellent ideas of how they wanted their sensors to be worked. So I don't know, Sebastian, would you like to start and say something?
About the sensor?
Yes, what you were mentioning during our meetings.
Oh, that the temperature, how like the temperature and like the wind would affect the pilot whenever they would take it up into the sky.
Okay. And Christian, Ian, did you want to mention as something as well?
I would like to add the altitude.
Mm-hmm. What about the altitude?
And to a CubeSat.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sebastian is in 5th grade. Christian, going into 6th grade. Christian is 6th grader going into 7th grade. And then Ian right here is a 4th grader, right there. And Ian is going into 5th grade next year. Ian, would you like to add anything?
No.
Not today?
I'm a little bit nervous.
Okay.
That's all
They're
right.
extremely chatty, but right now I guess they're nervous. And then Irving, we have Irving, who was last year in 5th grade going into 6th grade. I guess he's not there. So some of the things, more than anything, was them actually working together. In that sense, like how we talked about in one of our meetings about that perseverance in engineering. That's the main thing right now, not giving up. We wouldn't get it to work, but not giving up, putting it together and making sure they work as a team and talk to each other, making sure that that their work showed and that we look right now, I'm super proud of them that they got to this point. Never did I think that we would be talking to you right now, and especially, our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders now. So I'm very proud of them. Main point.
Yeah, absolutely. We're proud of them too.
Yes, congratulations, Perlan will be proud to find you.
I'd just like to say, this is Jim from Teachers in Space. I know how difficult it is for you guys to get on and talk, and this is learning. It's okay. It's okay to be nervous. Everybody who's talking now is just like you, and we did it, and we did it, and we got better. So you guys are doing a real brave thing to try this. Great job. Great job.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey guys, I remember when I was in those grades just a few years ago when I was really nervous to speak on any camera or Zoom or in person. I went through a few reputations and I got a lot better at it, so great job.
Yeah, definitely. So on board of this CubeSat, we have a gyroscope accelerometer, we have visible light reader, the temperature and pressure, as well as micro SD and the real-time clock, and then we have one of the generic Arduino Unos. So we're going to see how that works in comparison to the genuine Arduino versus a couple of you used the Arduino Nanos, and as Jim Lenke was talking about earlier, he's using the ESP32. So we're going to get to see quite a few different setups and how the different sensors compare to each other, how the different Arduino microcontrollers compare to each other. So it's going to be really interesting to see the data when it comes back.
No, if I can say something, this is Chris from Teachers in Space.
Yep.
I was actually chatting with one of the Cube people on the sensors, exactly what you were just saying, because I'm always interested in seeing new sensors, especially at the radiation level, as to what they're recording, for our own purposes as far as what we're doing for radiation experiments as well. And it's always nice to see new things because, like I've always said, we compare sensors, all the time, and to find ones that function at different altitudes and at different temperatures and pressures is important, not only for what they're doing, but also for what we do with our experiments as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you're all contributing to the larger body of science that exists out there. People will be able to look at this, we'll make this available to the public, and you'll be able to use this for future science projects or making posters or presentations for science fairs. So don't just think that you made it and you're done and that's the end of it. There's still a lot more to be done with this, a lot more data to look at and work to be done still.
And there are teachers on this call who were involved. They were teaching the students the first time that we developed these experiments for Perlan in 2016, Chris Murphy and Jim Poole, and they're still with us. And you guys have all just helped us learn so much more the more students and the more teachers we work with, the more we know, and the bigger and better this program gets. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So this next cube is from Gary Chavez and his students at Gadsden High School in Anthony, New Mexico. Do we have anybody on the call from Gadsden? If not, I can go over the details of it. I've become very, very familiar with all of these CubeSats. I just bear in mind that I probably took apart your CubeSat and put it all back together again. This CubeSat in particular, I did switch out a couple of the sensors just because I was running into some conflicts. So this actually has more functionality than when it started. This also has one of those multifunction environmental sensors, so this can take a lot of different readings from environmental things. This also has one of those generic Arduino Unos. And it also has the real-time clock and the micro SD card reader. And just like all of the rest, it has that power boost, and the battery is sandwiched down under there. That's another really nice thing about this particular type of battery. Not to take anything away from Jim Lenke and the batteries that they chose to use. Just trying to fit this type of battery into one of these 1U cubes, I commend them for being able to do it. These flat ones I find are just because they're almost square shaped and they're very thin, they really lend themselves to being able to be fit into one of these CubeSats really well.
Could you do me a favor, put the specs for that battery into the chat? We have somebody at the University of Kentucky trying to catch up with these students, and they're building a CubeSat. I'd like to tell them about that battery.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. What I'll do is either I'll do that at the end and put it in the chat, or I'll just put it in an email. What I'm thinking about doing is putting together a follow-up email that I'll send to all of the participants of this meeting with any details and any of the questions and answers in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, so that's Gadsden, and then our final New Mexico CubeSat comes from the New Mexico Space Grant Consortium. This was put together by Paolo Omeg, the director of the New Mexico Space Grant Consortium and a professor at New Mexico State University. I didn't see if Paolo was here. If he is, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about this? Otherwise, I'll go over it. So this cube has a slightly different setup than some of the others. It has a lot of the same components. However, I was working with Paolo to get it working, and we decided to switch out the Arduino Uno with a Seed Studio Nano. This is a really interesting microcontroller. Seed Studio is a Chinese brand, but they have a pretty good online presence. They have a website, they have technical support, and so I've recently started working with these to see how they compare to some of the other microcontrollers that we use. In my testing so far, it works really well. It's really cheap. It's only I think $8 for one of these. And if you have worked with a Nano, you'll know that it has a little bit more capability than the Uno does. It can fit a little bit more in its memory. And this particular version has a Grove connector on it, which means that there are a lot of sensors out there that you can just plug in with a wire. You don't have to do any soldering. So that might be something that you might want to work on and try out in the future. Besides that, the other difference is this is the only CubeSat that has an air quality sensor. This is a air particulate sensor. It can measure all the way down to, I believe, PM1. It also measures PM 2.5, which is the real important one. That's the one that you'll see most often is tracked in air quality monitoring websites and such. PM 2.5, that's a particle with a size of, I believe, 2.5 micrometers, which is able to the reason why it's tracked so much is that's the one that can get into your lungs and cross over into your bloodstream, I believe. And so that's why that's what you'll usually see. So recently, I'm sure most of us are now familiar with the air quality readings after all of those wildfires in Canada really inundated big parts of the US, but also in past years. I know that the New Mexico folks in particular, when we were doing our workshops last summer, there was some pretty serious fires that were being fought by some of our participants' family members even. So I know that Paolo wanted to include the air quality sensor, especially for keeping a track of air quality these days, and it seems like it's becoming a much more regular part of our lives. Besides that, it has some of the other basic sensors, visible light, as well as temperature and pressure, and then it's got the real-time clock and the micro SD card reader on it as well. And you'll notice that no two CubeSats are really the same, even the parts that I added to them. So here's the power boost here with the battery on top here, which differs from some of the other ones where the power boost was on top.
So all right. If I might, Paolo told me that he used his CubeSat with his teaching students. He's a college professor and he's teaching teachers to become teachers, how to do that. And he brought that into his, they call it methods classes, for his teaching students. So at the University of New Mexico, or New Mexico State University. So just wanted to include that.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great that we're seeing this being used pretty much at all grade levels. We've got elementary, middle, high school, and even college. All right, so that was it for New Mexico. Now we move on to Kansas, and we're going to start by taking a look at Leah Kaufman's CubeSat and her students from Turner Elementary in Kansas City, Kansas. Leah, did you want to talk a little bit about this CubeSat?
Leah was in the chat and said she was having difficulties with her microphone.
Okay, yep, I see that. Okay, well, this will actually look a little bit different than what you sent me, Leah. I added a couple of items. The micro SD card reader was acting a little funky, so I replaced that, and then I also added a real-time clock so that when you look at the data, you'll be able to compare it to time. That's really one of the most important things with these CubeSats, is that when you go to chart the data, you need to chart the actual data from the sensor you're looking at against something, and time is really the thing that makes the most sense. So anybody who didn't have a real-time clock on the CubeSat, I added one in just so that we would be able to do that. Besides that, I changed the configuration of the plates a little bit in order to be able to fit the battery and the power boost on there. And this has a temperature and pressure sensor on there. And I do believe that Leah's students are the youngest students that we have that submitted a CubeSat. She is an elementary school teacher. You can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, Leah. So that is from Kansas City. And then our final CubeSat comes from Hutchinson, Kansas, from Holy Cross Catholic School. And this was made by Stephanie Banning and her students. They actually put together a video that I'll show. Let me just share my screen real quick. All right, here we go.
Holy Cross 6th grade goes to space.
Well, last
Actually, we are sending a project into space.
This project is sponsored by the Teachers in Space program.
Would a traveler on Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket be exposed to unsafe levels of radiation when they leave the protection of the atmosphere? If so, at what altitude does the level of radiation become unsafe?
Can we create a covering material that would keep a human from experiencing significantly increased levels of radiation?
The CubeSat experiment will help us find the answer. After researching materials, we decided lead may offer the best protection from radiation. Our radiation shield team covers the radiation sensor with lead sheeting, keeping the size of the shield with the CubeSat size parameters.
Our coding team puts together the code to allow the Arduino to collect sensor data.
Our graphic team creates the wiring design of the Arduino and the sensors. The CubeSat frame gets assembled and integrated with the Arduino. From here, the CubeSat will be integrated into the launch vehicle, which will power the Arduino and sensors.
Gamma radiation sensors will begin taking measurements, and those readings are saved to a micro SD card.
Altitude reading from the launch vehicle's altimeter are also recorded from launch to landing. Once the flight is completed, the CubeSat experiment will be retrieved from the launch vehicle, and the micro SD card will be removed along with its data and imported into spreadsheet software.
Our experiment will be a success if the gamma radiation readings for the control start in the normal range of 5 to 60 counts per minute, show an increase during the flight, and then return to the normal range upon landing.
Our shield success will be achieved if the range of the gamma radiation data taken during the flight is smaller for the shielded sensor compared to the control sensor.
We invite you
All right. The video may have paused for you guys, but just know that in the recording, it seems to be working just fine. Yeah, that was an awesome video. That was really good.
Thank you. I just wanted to add this. I just wanted to add that was kind of our way. Someone else mentioned having artwork was a way that they had some different kids get involved. So my way of having some of the kids that aren't really the techie, well, they did all that on computers, but it was a way to do something that was not necessarily the coding or the wiring if that wasn't their thing. And I had a class of 28 students. So it was somewhat challenging to find something for everyone to do.
Well, you did a great job, for sure. Now,
Thank you.
Your CubeSat holds the distinction of being the CubeSat that I spent the most time on. If you guys notice, you'll see that there are not only one, but two of those radiation sensors inside of here. And not only is it two radiation sensors, but one of them is encased in lead. So to make that fit inside of there was challenging. There's no doubt about it. And Stephanie, I'm sure that you and your students were really banging your heads against the wall trying to make that work.
We spent a lot of time trying to figure that out.
I spent a decent amount of time as well. You'll notice that this CubeSat in particular is the CubeSat that Zip Ties made. I think I counted it up, and there are about 24 zip ties in here of all different sizes, shapes, colors, and you'll also notice that there isn't really anything sticking out beyond the sides of the frame. So, you know, sometimes it just takes some innovative problem solving, thinking outside the box. You'll also notice that there really aren't any plates in here either that anything is attached to. The Arduino and all of the sensors I wound up soldering into this proto board here. So it makes it kind of hard to see the actual sensors and everything. You can only really see it from the side. But you have the Arduino Nano Every is the brain. That's a little guy, so that's easy to fit in there. And then we have a real-time clock over here, hard to kind of see in there. And then the micro SD card reader is right here. And then of course you have the two radiation sensors. You have your control radiation sensor and then the experimental radiation sensor with the lead plating on it. And then finally, over here on the other side of this is where the battery is mounted, and the power boost is zip tied right up there. I also replaced the frame itself just because there were some holes in it from the way that the students had originally attached the radiation sensors. Unfortunately, there wasn't really a way to make it fit that way, and I wanted to make sure that it had a nice sturdy frame, so I switched out the frame on it. But it's otherwise all your experiment, and we're looking forward to see how much this lead blocks the radiation.
No, from my end, your sound is kind of distorting there.
Oh, is it?
There you go. It's back to clear now.
Was it distorted for that whole explanation there?
A good share of it, yes.
Okay. Just to clarify, we've got the two radiation sensors, one coated in or inside of a lead container, and there were quite a few different things that I did to this in order to make everything fit, but ultimately zip ties to the rescue. They were able to make it so that I could mount everything in here safely and without anything moving around. And that...
No, I just want to say thank you for your help. I will say I was pretty proud of the way that our kids had come up with the way that it all did fit. Although I will agree that it looks a little more secure the way that you have it now.
It worked. It definitely worked. The only issue and the reason why I did change things was because of things sticking out beyond the frame itself. I mean, that's like really the thing, the most important thing here is that I wanted to keep everything within that 1U CubeSat standard of 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters in a cube. And so that's why I changed it. Otherwise I would have left it, but I wanted to make sure that we'd be able to fit it with all the other CubeSats.
And yeah, the reason for that is so that it will integrate into the payload bay for Perlan. It has to fit inside that frame in order to go in the aircraft.
No, I understand all that. I just
We're very proud of
I was very proud, and they took some time figuring that out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It showed.
Well done.
It showed.
Yeah.
All right, and then finally we have the Teachers in Space Cube. So I actually finished this about 15 minutes before this meeting. And let me tell you, there was definitely, if I had longer hair, it would have been pulled out. There were definitely some troubleshooting issues that I ran into, just like I'm sure all of you ran into. Don't think that just because I do this kind of for a living now that I don't run into problems too, because I certainly do. So this is a 2U, and it has every sensor that all of the other CubeSats have, except for an accelerometer and gyroscope. That was just the one thing I could not get to play nice with everything else. And I think some of you may remember from the workshops that that was the issue as well, that we couldn't get the gyroscope and accelerometer. For whatever reason, it turns out that when you're using I2C, which is a way of connecting sensors to an Arduino, it's a very convenient way of doing it because it's just like 2 wires that you need instead of, some sensors need like 4 or 5 wires. And the way that works is that every sensor using that I2C protocol has its own individual address. Well, unfortunately, you can run into situations where 2 sensors will have the exact same address and they'll conflict with each other. Now, luckily, a lot of the sensors have the ability to solder a little pad on the back, and you can see that right there. If you put a drop of solder on there, it'll change the address. Now, for whatever reason, and I'm going to look at it some more tomorrow, but even when I changed the address, it still was conflicting, and I couldn't get it to work correctly. So, besides the accelerometer and gyroscope, everything that is on the other CubeSats is on this one. And this CubeSat is going to fly on egret. This will not be going on Perlan. This is going to be kind of the control cube. So you'll be able to compare the data from all the CubeSats that go up on Perlan to the data collected by this CubeSat as it flies in egret. So we have our radiation sensor up top side. We've got a air quality sensor on the bottom there. And then throughout here we've got the environmental sensor, the micro SD card, the all of the real-time clock, and and one thing that none of the other CubeSats have, this is something from our 2U that's going up on Blue Origin, is a sound level sensor. And that's buried in there. It's kind of hard to see. But that will give us an idea of how the volume changes throughout the flights. So I imagine that, down close to the ground with a thicker atmosphere, you'll be able to hear more than when we get all the way up to the edge of the atmosphere there.
Could you send us the frequency range of that sound sensor?
Yes. Well, this won't be going on Perlan. This will only be in egret. So.
Yeah, the University of Kentucky sensor is looking at very long wave sounds associated with turbulence.
Oh, okay. Then yeah, that could definitely be useful to them. So, all right, that is all of the CubeSats that will be flying on Perlan and on egret. We're really looking forward to all of this. I've had a great time going through all of the various CubeSats. It was really an honor to be able to work on them with you guys. I was more than happy to spend time troubleshooting and having Zoom calls with classes and answering questions. It was really, really amazing. And I can't wait to be able to talk to all of you after this is all over and look at some of the data together and find those interesting things that will be happening that nobody has even thought of yet. We've learned in previous flights that you kind of develop an idea of what you're going to test and what you expect to see, but then something is going to happen that nobody is expecting, and that'll really be only visible once we get the data back and we start graphing it and looking at it in charts and such. All right, so does anybody have anything else that they wanted to add, or any questions maybe that they might have? If you do have any questions that come up, feel free to send me an email. It's noah@tis.org, NOAH. I can let you know of any updates that we get from the Perlan team as the flights are taking place. I'm sure that they will be rather dependent on flying conditions, so we'll try to give you a heads up. And if you look in the chat, I saw that Ed earlier put some information about getting updates via text messages, as well as taking a look at their virtual cockpit, which is a really interesting thing to take a look at when they're flying. You can actually see data in real time from the Perlan aircraft.
I would like to thank all of the schools, teachers, and the students for these wonderful CubeSats. These are going to be a boon to our scientific inquiry as we explore these giant waves. The waves can impact weather around the globe, and we don't understand them fairly well enough. So Elizabeth and her team will have more data to look at. I'm presuming, let me double check, I'm presuming that we can share the data with the Perlan science team and universities that may be interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, in the spirit of science, we want to share as much as possible so that the most people can benefit from that data. All right, did anybody else have any questions or anything they wanted to add?
Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to have our small town Mexico students participate in this. And then also, is there the information so we can share with our district? I mean, the Gadsden and the high school also did it at the Gadsden Independent School District. That they also did it. We're from the Riverside, it's the same district. And then New Mexico State is for us is down the road. So we were wondering, wherever else could we share it so that way our district can see what our students are doing as well?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have social media posts and such. I know that Perlan is going to be posting pictures and anything that you have. As a matter of fact, that reminds me, if anybody has any pictures or videos of students working on any of these projects, please send them to me. Again, it's noah@tis.org, and I'll share that with Perlan as well. And the more social media we have, the more we can publicize all of this, the more eyes we can get on it, and that just means more opportunities for everybody going on into the future. I'll also be posting things on our website, tis.org, and I'll also keep everybody updated via email as well, with any updates from Perlan, having to do with the flights and the data and such. And once the flights are all over, they'll be sending the CubeSats back to me. I will be disassembling some of the parts, like the batteries and such, and then I'll send everything that you sent me back to you. So you can expect to receive your CubeSats and your SD cards and your data physically back. But then we'll also, before that, we'll send you the digital versions of all the data, as soon as we get them.
Do we have permission to share that Kansas video?
Yes, we were already given permission.
Yeah, we always need permission for anything that has pictures or video of students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I checked with our school and everything on all the pictures too.
Thank you.
Just a note, we're trying to continue funding so that you teachers who have now been through the process can continue, perhaps next year with a group, to ready an experiment for all different types of platforms. And we need data from you, from the teachers. I sent an email out requesting information about the number of students who participated and other things in the email. I just put my email address into the chat. If you did not receive an email from me about this, let me know and I can send that to you. And if you did receive an email, I'd really like that information as soon as you can. I know for many of you it's a very busy time of year, but you can find the time, just a few data points that I'm looking for there. So thank you very much.
All right, well, I would like to thank all of you teachers and your students who built these CubeSats. I'd like to thank the Perlan team and the eGrit team for giving us the opportunity and allowing us to share this opportunity. And we just want to say good luck to everybody, and we're really looking forward to seeing the results, and we really hope that Perlan is able to break its own record and ideally hit that 90,000 foot altitude mark.
Absolutely.
All right, well, if that's it, everybody have a good rest of your evening, and keep an eye on your emails. I'll be sending things out periodically with updates and any questions that I might have. So good luck to everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks and bye.